in general in India. The ban came less than 2 weeks after Hindu hardliners accused the charity of carrying out forced conversions of Hindus to Christianity in a home of girls. It was running in the state of Gujarat. A police report said at the time, and I quote, "The girls inside the home are being lured to adopt Christianity by making them wear the cross around the neck and also placing the Bible on the table of the storeroom used by the girls in order to compel them to read the Bible. It is an attempted crime to force religious conversion upon the girls." That was the mindset of, and still the mindset of the extremists in India. Christian pastors have been attacked and church services violently disrupted in recent months as anti-Christian hysteria has grown. Over last Christmas, there was an unprecedented spate of attacks against the Christian community. Charity can be a dangerous activity when it is carried out by a religious minority of foreign origin in an exacerbating nationalistic context. Charity can disturb the established order and lead to all sorts of attacks. Trying to kill a movement financially is one of the means used by public powers, politicians, and various people having vested interests, as we have just seen with the ban on the funding, the foreign funding for Mother Teresa's charity. The Catholic Church is known to be a majority religion in many countries, but it is a minority religion in India and a foreign religion. And Prime Minister Modi and Hindu extremists do not like it. Another financial weapon against unwelcome religious or spiritual groups is the abusive taxation. In the Indian state of Kerala, Catholic religious congregations are still challenging a state court's order, which years ago withdrew tax exemption that religious priests and nuns had been enjoying since 1944 for their commitment to the education of Indian children of all faiths. The Catholic educational staff has indeed taken a vote of poverty and does not take any salary for teaching in government-sponsored educational institutions. But the court in that Indian state has refused to accept their argument of volunteering that is beneficial to the Indian youth in all its diversity. And the case there is now examined by the Supreme Court. But other states are already planning to take similar taxation measures. In Taiwan, Tai Ji Men has developed a wide range of charity activities. Tens of thousands of dizi have been volunteering for several decades to make the world better and more humane with their message of love and peace transformed into concrete charity actions. But as I said before, charity is not welcome either by everybody in Taiwan. For 25 years, Prosecutor Hu has been trying to destroy the Tai Ji Men movement because of personal financial interests and because he is career-driven. In 2002, the Control Yuan, the nation's top watchdog body, investigated the management of the Tai Ji Men case by Prosecutor Hu, accused him of abuse of authority, and referred his case to the Justice Ministry for sanctions. According to the report of the Control Yuan, Hu was found guilty of initiating an investigation based on fabricated charges, guilty of violating the principle of confidentiality during the investigation, guilty of interrogating the defendants without prior notice to their attorneys as required by law, guilty for treating the defendants improperly and rudely when interrogating them, guilty of freezing the defendants' assets without any evidence of illegal gains, guilty of overstepping his authority by issuing letters on his own requesting the dissolution of Tai Ji Men, and guilty for calling for the establishment of an association of alleged victims of Tai Ji Men, blindly siding with them and failing to verify the credibility of their claims, hereby damaging his own image of an impartial law enforcement officer. These were very serious charges. But for 25 years, this coup attempt, I would say, against a charitable spiritual movement, training generations of young people, spending their time and their money to become good Taiwanese citizens and make Taiwanese society more humane, has remained unpunished. The fight for justice needs to go on unabated in the Tai Ji Men case. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Willie, for these very enlightening stories. It was great. I really like when you said that sometimes people is not able to accept the good charity works of others. They just can't believe it. And maybe it's because they will not be able to do it hurtfully themselves. Because otherwise, any charity, any good from anyone should always be welcome.
Of course.
So thank you, Willie. Now we're going to give the floor to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Massimo Introvenia. By now, if you have seen any of the webinars that have been held, he is the mastermind of such an initiative together with the Taiji Men, dizi, and Human Rights Without Frontiers. He is one of the top experts in sociology of religion and anything that has to do with the free thinking of people, the right to freely think, to freely believe, and to freely practice what they believe makes them better. The floor is yours, Mr. Introvenia.
Thank you. And if you are not tired of my stories, you just saw one. Here is another one, which should be introduced with reference to the notion of political charity. There is a Roman Catholic saying that after the love we have for God, politics is the highest form of charity. And you might find it attributed to the popes Paul VI or Pius XII. But in fact, these popes were quoting an earlier pope, Pius XI, who said this in a speech in December 18, 1927. To understand what something is, normally we need to have a notion of the contrary. For instance, we understand what hot means because we have a notion of cold. So in order to understand political charity, which is the benevolence of the rulers for the ruled and the nations, we should understand the opposite, the notion of political malevolence, rulers hating their citizens and trying to destroy them. And of course, there are examples of totalitarian rulers in the 20th century and even today. But as usual, I will tell you a story, and it's a story about an ancient city. I'm trying now to share my screen. I hope you see a landscape rather than me. If you do, this is the beautiful Gulf of Baratti in southern Tuscany. But all the forest that you see was once a very large city, actually one of the largest European cities, that 7 centuries before Christ was a serious rival of Rome for the largest city in southern Europe. It had some 18,000 inhabitants. Rome had 20,000. And it was also arguably the most important port on the Mediterranean, trading as far away as Asia and Africa, copper from nearby mines and iron, of which the Elba Island, which is just half an hour away from the Gulf, was the largest producer in the world. Now, if you go to Populonia today, what you see is forest. And you can take a walk of several hours in the forest, and here and there you see remnants of the city. And today the population of Populonia is only 17 people. So tourists ask what happened to Populonia, but some in reality don't even ask, because Populonia was one of the 2 important cities with Volterra in the confederation of the Etruscans, who was the great Mediterranean power before the Romans. So they know the Etruscans were conquered by the Romans in the 3rd, 2nd century BCE, and they just assume the Romans destroyed the city. But that's not the case, and the Romans did not operate in this way. The Romans destroyed only one big city, Carthage of the Phoenicians, a port in northern Africa, before from there troops had set sail, even with elephants, bent to destroy Rome and the Romans. So they believe Carthage was very dangerous, and they destroyed the city, even spread salt on the ruins, so that nothing symbolically could be built there in the future. But if you go to Egypt or to Greece, Egypt and Greece were conquered by the Romans, and the pyramids and the temples are still there. So they didn't destroy, they assimilated, and of course they killed the opponents to their Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, but normally they assimilated the local aristocrats into their own ruling class. For example, before Rome became a republic, all its last kings were ethnically Etruscans, because they were part of an Etruscan aristocracy which had been assimilated into the Roman aristocracy. So it is true that the Romans took Populonia in 282 before Christ, but they didn't destroy anything. Populonia was still there. On the contrary, they added magnificent villas for the rich Romans who went there, And if you go to the nearby Museum of Piombino, there are some masterpieces, which are actually from the transitional period from Etruscans to Romans. Here you see a vase who are more than 100 small figurines carved, which has been found just recently in the bottom of the sea. And you see the famous ceiling of one of these villas, which is decorated with several different species of fishes and other sea animals. So the Romans didn't destroy Populonia, and actually Populonia was flourishing until it was destroyed in the 1st century before Christ. So what happened? How can we solve the mystery of the destruction of Populonia? Well, the simple answer is taxes. Rome had a monarchy, then a republic, then an empire. In the end of the republic, generals tried to seize powers as dictators. And problems were when there was more than one general who believed he would make a good dictator. And between 82 and 81, before Christian era, there was a civil war between two such generals called Marius and Sulla. And Sulla won, Marius committed suicide, and Sulla created something which semantically is still with us in the English language and in many other languages, the list of proscription. The war proscription existed before, but Sulla gave it an entirely different meanings. And he listed people who had sided with Marius to be punished. And there were thousands of such people. The old historians believed that Sulla killed all of them, but now it has been discovered that he killed only, if we can say only, 10% of those in the list of proscription. The other 90%, he imposed the taxation of 95%. And so they got ruined very quickly. And the list of proscription of Sulla also included entire cities, such as Populonia, because the ruling class of Populonia sided with Marius. So Sulla didn't destroy any building in Populonia. He didn't kill anybody, but he imposed his 95% tax on all economic activities, with the results that in 20, 30 years, the city was abandoned by the inhabitants. And in 50 years, it no longer existed. The forest had overwhelmed everything. And when a Christian traveler came in the 3rd century, found that there were no inhabitants and no houses left in what was once one of the largest and most important cities in the known world. Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court in the 19th century, John Marshall, as we are reminded in our webinars when we have Professor Jacobsen here from the United States, he famously said that the power to tax is the power to destroy. But that was not invented by the Americans, and Sulla, with its lists of proscription, knew it 2,000 years before Marshall. Now, Sulla didn't end up too badly, because after a few months, he wrote a letter to the Romans saying that being a dictator was not that fun, and he retired in his luxurious villa near Naples, saying he wanted to devote the rest of his life to three things much more fun than politics: young girls, alcohol, and books, and he did it. But the policy of Sylla showed that it's possible to destroy through taxes, but that it's a very stupid idea, because after 2-3 centuries, when the barbarians started to land in what is now Italy, Rome would have needed a port like Populonia, but this port no longer existed. It had been destroyed by Sylla through taxes. So I believe this is a lesson in political malevolence, the contrary of political charity. You can hate a part or even all your citizens. You can destroy them. A very effective way of destroying them is taxes. But normally it's not a good idea. History will show to you that you made a mistake. And in the end, the Roman Empire couldn't resist the barbarians. And this, I believe, shows a lesson to authorities in countries such present-day Taiwan, which much bigger countries and empires than theirs were destroyed inter alia by the unwise use of taxes and political malevolence. So it is a lesson, and the good news is for Taiwanese politicians, unlike the Romans of old, there is still time to change their ways and behave differently, and let's hope they will do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Massimo. You hear me, right? Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Massimo. Again, another story for the book. It is true that it is always a good time, and it's never a bad time to correct any injustices. So with this, we're going to go to our next speaker, our next introducer. I've known him since a number of years now, Dr. Peter Gramatikov. He's representative of United Religions Initiative at the UN headquarters in Geneva as part of the UN NGO Committee on Freedom of Religion and Belief. He has participated in many forums internationally and especially in Europe. He's from the beautiful city of Plovdiv in beautiful Bulgaria. He's a Eurodecan Orthodox, Bulgarian Orthodox, and he has been responsible for creating a lot of tolerance, respect, and knowledge about the diversity. Mr. Dr. Peter Gramatikov, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivan, for the introduction. I have the privilege, first of all, to introduce to a short but vivid and influential video on the 21st anniversary of Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy, San Jose.
As the pandemic ebbs after upending life around the world, the vast majority of the people are working hard on returning life to pre-pandemic normalcy. Amid this new phase of the pandemic, Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy San Jose hosted its 21st anniversary celebration at Saratoga Country Club. The celebration started with traditional performances of lions and drums that symbolize auspiciousness and spirituality. At this joyous event, Dr. Hong Daozi, the leader of Tai Ji Men, rang the bell of world peace and love and invited guests to pray for California, the U.S., and the entire world. As of August 2022, a total of 427 influential leaders from 128 nations have rung the bell.
On behalf of this great state, the fifth largest economy in the world, which stands for nonviolence, nonviolent action, nonviolence to accomplish all of our goals, whether they be philosophical or ideological or economic goals or political goals.
And my wish is to have good relations with all the countries so that we can work together on climate change.
Surgery for the world.
I'm very touched and honored. I think it's a celebration for all of us, for our community in service of peace and the goals and values we all share. Thank you.
Dr. Hong delivered welcome remarks, emphasizing the importance of a healthy body and mind to cope with the rapid changes of the environment.
常保平静、安静的心，生大智慧，并以爱为动力，团结世人的心，期望疫情早日结束，战争早日止息，共创全人类的福祉及永续发展的未来。
The Academy presented to each of its distinguished guests a book entitled Embodying the Wisdom of Tai Chi. As a wife and mother of three, Taiji Men member Lisa shared her story.
As all families, we do deal with conflicts, problems, and hectic moments. One thing that I've learned that constantly reminds me to stay pleasant in my busy life is balance. And I try never stop improving myself to be a better person, no matter how old I am.
The event was live streamed in both Chinese and English and attracted thousands of views.
It's very heartwarming because the messages of the Tai Ji Men are so important, especially in this era where we must have greater unity among people on earth and caring about each other and caring about sustainability and our shared challenges of climate and peace.
Evelyn in California, USA.
Now several Tai Ji Men dizi from around the world will receive the floor to share their opinion, views, and witness. Firstly, I would like to invite Ms. Stella Liang, which is an agent of state-owned enterprise, Tai Ji Men dizi. Ms. Stella, please.
Hi, could you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Stella, and I'm very glad to join this event today. And as we know, today is recognized as the International Day of Charity. And so I want to say thank you, Mother Teresa, for being a role model for the entire world and for feeding people with your generosity. However, given my age and background, the concept of charity seems a bit abstract and challenging to grasp. So I did some research online to better comprehend it. An analytical dictionary of Chinese characters and old Chinese dictionary state that charity in Chinese called 慈善 combines the word love and good fortune. Additionally, charity is defined as followed by the Cambridge Online Dictionary. First, a system or organization of giving money, food, or help free to those who are in need. Second, the quality of being kind to people and not judging them in a severe way. And by the way, there is an English idiom says that charity begins at home. There is also a saying that charity starts from religion in both the East and the West, because a religion starts with helping others for the better. So those messages brought back memories of what I have learned from my shifu Hong Daozi, 掌门人 of Taiji Men, throughout the past 10 years since I joined in Taiji Men in 2011. Shifu asked me a question that day, which I will never forget. Have you poured tea for Dad? Shifu asked me in Taiwanese Mandarin, sounding extremely kind, just like an elder in my family. I was frozen because I couldn't understand how this had anything to do with my health, even though I had comforted. Eventually, I carried it away with other words. These comments always made me think of my shifu heart in these years that followed. Gradually, I started to consider my temperament and realized how challenging it was for my family. I've learned to consider my personality and respect the challenging work that my family conduct. I'm aware that to avoid regret, I must show my family my love in both words and deeds. It's also incorporate the English idiom, charity begins at home. Before the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world in 2019, 55 Taiji Men dizi, including myself, traveled with our shifu to the City Montessori School in Lucknow, India, for the 20th International Conference of Chief Justice of the World. Throughout the entire trip and conference, we also raised awareness of International Day of Conscience. For me, the range of conscience is quite broad. It's something, if something is good or right, regardless of how big or small, it does take that into consideration. So before I left for my trip abroad, I make a promise to myself that I will share this inspiring idea with everyone I met and encourage them to support it in order to spread the goodwill to more people. A judge from the Republic of Azerbaijan was sitting next to me when we went to lunch one day after visiting the Taiji Mahal. He told me about his home country and showed me a Google map so I could learn more about it. In exchange, I gave him a gift and tell him I wanted to ask him to help me out on my birthday by doing good deeds. Eventually, he agreed to endorse the International Day of Conscience. I was overcome with emotion as I turned back toward the tour bus, sobbing uncontrollably as I thanked my parents for giving me the gift of life and the chance to carry out good deeds. After I got home and tell them the entire experience, and of course, I expressed gratitude to my parents in that moment. I've gone through all of this and developed into the content and self-aware person I'm today because of Shifu's wisdom and direction. My Shifu is therefore the charity of my heart for me. The global is currently experiencing the same pandemic as it was at the end of 2019, with strange weather patterns, a slumping economy, a food crisis, and even war engulfing hit the planet. Taiwan also appeared to be democratic and free, but it is rife with misinformation and lies. Earlier this week, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Taiwan, Foundation for Democracy, and the AIT Taipei office co-hosted the 2022 Religion Freedom Forum on August 30th to 31st with the topic an Indo-Pacific civil society dialogue on religion freedom in challenging times. And President Tsai Ing-wen said, "Our vision is to create a world where no one is persecuted because of their beliefs, traditions, or religion identity. But is it ironic that a civil society debate that value variety of opinion and belief forbid uninvited media and citizens from participating?" Taiji Men is an international nonprofit cultural organization dedicated to the transmission of Qigong martial art and the promotion of culture of love and peace. Shifu told us to be patriotic, So Shifu and his dizi spend our own money to participate in large and small activities at home and abroad without any government subsidy, and have visited 101 countries around the world, helping that they will learn about traditional culture of martial art and helping that they will feel with that happiness and hope. Since a selfish person, my shifu, Dr. Hong Daozi, and Tai Ji Men is being persecuted by the government. Tai Ji Men fake case occurred in 1996, and the persecutor Ho Kuan-ren used fake witness and evidence to investigate and prosecute, divising every citizen of the nation. This case is comparable to an international fraud case because it invited the occupation of other people's property using cruel methods, including detention, robbing people of their freedom, and endangering life. Even though political parties have changed several times over the past 26 years, individuals in power are still unwilling to accept responsibility for their errors. On August 21st, 2020, our land was even be illegally auctioned off. Shifu spent the most of his life and his savings here to create a sacred space where his deeds may practice. I also called it my home. Where is the world without persecution that you speak of, President Tsai Ing-wen? What do you think? As Taiwanese, we face numerous internal and international challenges, and we must face fortitude ourselves before we can save ourselves. However, what I see is a future that worry young people. To the president, I would like to say, please examine your conscience, consider the suffering of the people and the nation's crisis, and display your charitable heart to redress the Tai Ji Men case, return our sacred land, and grant us peace and justice, so that Taiwan can once again be a lovely and joyful island. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella, for this moving witness. Secondly, I would like to invite Miss Lilian Liu, who is editor and Tai Ji Men dizi. Lilian, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello, my name is Lilian, and I'm a recent graduate also Tai Ji Men dizi. I grew up in Tai Ji Men, and it is my second home. Tai Ji Men is an ancient Qigong martial arts discipline dedicated to the promotion of Tai Chi culture and has been invited to participate in large and small events and performances, including the National Day ceremony and the opening show of the 2017 Summer Universiade. In addition, my shifu has led a cultural mission to the world to conduct cultural exchanges and promote the concept of love and peace, and has visited more than 100 countries on 5 continents. When I was in high school, I had a good fortune to travel to the United States for a cultural exchange, and in early June of this year, I traveled to Turkey for a cultural performance. The most impressive part of the trip was that on our last day in Turkey, we went to a square where we sang and danced and let the people in the square to have fun. When we finished the show, a lot of people came to take pictures with us. One of them came up to me, and when I asked him if he wanted to take a picture with us, he didn't say anything but pointed at his phone and asked me to look at it. I walked up to him, knew he was talking to his friend. I realized he was deaf after seeing them communicated with each other in sign language. Despite the fact that I am skilled in sign language, I could tell that our performance had moved him when he pointed at me and copied our dancing steps to his friends. It's our goal to spread joy and love. And when we boarded the tour bus to depart, the hearing impaired person waved us goodbye with excitement, which truly moved me. Love and happiness do not need words. The heart-to-heart communication can bring the most real feelings. Shifu told us to keep a good heart, foster love and peace, and to recognize right from wrong, follow the straight way, act morally, and avoid becoming an unrighteous person. But for more than 25 years, a worthy organization has been unfairly targeted for persecution. In 1996, the government launched a political investigation under the cover of the religious crime. Hou Kuan-ren, the prosecutor, used his position of power and broke the law by using fabricated charges on Tai Ji Men. Tai Ji Men was found not guilty and did not owe taxes by the Supreme Court in the third trial in 2007, but the National Tax Bureau ignored the decision and continued to use the court's dismissed indictment as reason for wrongly charging taxes. The revenue officer Shi Yuesheng, who was involved in the case, revealed in his video that he was working with Hou Kuan-ren to give false evidence, and that even though he said the case was wrong and couldn't be done this way, the Taipei City Field Office wanted Shi Yuesheng to do it this way. Hou Kuan-ren is pursuing a false case, and the injustice's real nature has now been revealed. But these issues has been open since before I was even born, and it still hasn't been resolved. Tai Ji Men case has been sent to the UN Human Rights Council 5 times. Every group, a religious leader in the Church of Scientology, said that Taiwan is now known as a democratic country in the world. He cannot understand why Taiwan would allow a few officials to keep abusing a peaceful group that has proven its innocence for more than 25 years. Every group also pointed out that no country is perfect. However, the issue is that when injustice happens in a democracy, it may have a more serious impact than when it was in a country with a totalitarian government. I've already said that Tai Ji Men is my second home. Who will remain silent when a family suffers unjustly? In addition to protecting my house, I realized I had to act in order to make a small but meaningful contribution to society. I don't want these lawbreakers to target me in the future. In order to push for a fair tax reform, I went to the streets of Taipei while carrying a microphone and holding up signs. I'm hoping the government will pay attention to us. We hope that the public will be aware of their rights and that judges won't trample on them. Dr. Renee Wardlow, the president of the Association of World Citizens, once said that the International Covenant of Human Rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights both protect the rights to freedom, survival, and prosperity, and the persecution of Tai Ji Men by the Tax Bureau gravely violates those rights. In May of this year, the international reviewers came to Taipei for the third international conference on the examination of state reports under the convention. At that time, I was with a group of volunteers outside the venue to express our desires. The volunteers were holding signs that read, "State violence as terrible as war. We want human rights." They're hoping the members will hear our requests for assistance, see our persistence, and then press the government to change course and protect human rights. The abuse of power and illegal taxation by officials is one of the reasons why Taiwan's tax system cannot be reformed properly. Foreign investment will be impacted by bad tax systems and a terrible economy. Business in Taiwan will suffer if foreign investors do not come, and if business fail, talent will leave the country. My classmates who studied abroad once told me that they wanted to continue working abroad afterwards because the economy in Taiwan was bad, the salary was not high, and there was no development. Isn't it sad that young people don't want to stay in their hometowns? The United Nations celebrated International Day of Charity on September 5. In order to protect the future of the next generation, I would like to urge to the officials to awake their conscience, stop violating human rights using public funds. The basic means of protecting human rights is to protect fair and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liu, for sharing the wise voice of younger generations. Next testimonial, next witness will be Morrison Hung, who is Tai Ji Men dizi and university student. Morrison, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Morrison, and I am pleased to be able to share with you on International Day of Charity. First of all, I would like to pay tribute to Mother Teresa for her contribution to the poor, the sick, the orphans, and the dying around the world. In the 1999 poll of Americans, Mother Teresa was voted the most respected person of the 20th century. Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. It's one of the sister's famous quotes. I am not a saint, but as I grew up, I began to understand what an amazing thing our shifu Dr. Hong Daozi was doing. So much so that more and more people are beginning to follow in our shifu's footsteps as he led the world on the path to peace. Charity and love and peace are all about understanding that by being grateful and conscientious, thinking of others and putting aside prejudices, and the barriers between people will disappear and they will come closer to each other. I grew up in Tai Ji Men, and as a child, my mother would take me to school and campaigns to participate in the endorsement campaign for love and peace and human rights education. I've learned that people need to speak up for their own justice as a result of his exposure. Shifu led his deeds across 3 oceans and 5 continents, sowing seeds of love and peace all over the world. And my brothers and sisters traveled at their own expense, eliminating all difficulties, all in the hope of inspiring hope to the whole country and the whole world. My father and sisters have followed Shifu on many trips to Brazil, the United States, and India to promote love and peace. This year, I also accompanied Shifu to Sweden and Turkey to participate in conference and cultural exchange with international friends from around the world. This was the first time I heard the minister and head of state make a wish for love and peace and ring the bell at the bell ringing ceremony to convey their wishes to heaven. The Chinese energy not only resonate locally, but also spread the wish throughout the universe and serves as a constant reminder to shape hard to achieve our goals. Although we were born in different countries, I believe that heaven on earth will exist when all good hearts were bound by love. In my opinion, this is charity, since it puts self-interest aside and looks to the best possible future. And yet, such a group that concerns the entire world is being persecuted by the government of Taiwan. In 1996, when the Taiwan government initiated a religion crackdown, Tai Ji Men was affected for no reason and was reported in an anonymous black letter. However, when the Kaohsiung District Prosecutor's Office and the Hsinchu District Prosecutor's Office found no illegality and signed off prosecutor, Ho Kuan-ren ignored the result and launched a large number of police investigations to illegally search and investigate Tai Ji Men. violating the principle of ignorance. Afterwards, he spread false rumors to smear Taiji Men and referred them to the NTB for issuance of illegal tax bills. After years of struggle, in 2007, the Supreme Court ruled in the third trial that Taiji Men was not guilty and did not own taxes, and that the dizi's gifts to shifu were gifts in nature. There were no tax owned. However, the tax bill that should have been legally revoked was not revoked, and the illegal taxation continued. Taiji Men Qigong Academy was established in 1966. The essence of the academy has never changed, and there has never been any taxation problem. Only in the 6 years from 1991 to 1996, it was illegally taxed. The NTB has never verified the nature of Taiji Men or the nature of the income. The investigations also ignored the letters issued by the Ministry of Education, the central competent authority for current schools, in 1997 and 1999, and in the public hearing of the Legislative Yuan in 2000. The Ministry of Education declared 3 times that Taiji Men was not a current school. Commissioner of National Taxation Bureau of Taipei at that time, Zhang Shenghe, was also present, still insist on illegally levying taxes in the name of current schools. To this day, in the end, on August 21st, 2020, the Administrative Enforcement Department of the Ministry of Justice and the National Taxation Bureau knew that the execute procedure was illegally, and that they had committed the crime of illegal expropriation, but they still insist on auction of the reserved sites for self-cultivation of Taiji Men. After losing the bid in the second auction, it was directly forcibly nationalized. Willie said the different governments' policies can jeopardize people's freedom of religion, including cases of deliberate forced taxation of religions, organizations, and the fabricate tax evasion in an attempt to financially destroy religion group. For 25 years, Taiwan's tax authorities have ignored the opinion of outside experts, ignored the Supreme Court's ruling, and illegally taxed and auctions of Taiji Men's property without apologize or compensation. He points out that political decisions must be made to end this deprivation of justice. Ambassador of Large for Religion Freedom in Taiwan, Yushan Seminary President Baxing Dali also said that since the state has proved that Taiji Men is innocent, they should carry it out. Therefore, the Supreme Court's decision should be the only justice, and it's very fair to our whole country under the rule of law. If the government still ignores it, we have to continue to fight. Whenever it's the judicial unit or the NTB, we have to base on the verdict. Let's work together and try to give more efforts to the Taiwan government to help the Taiwan government stand as a positive and righteous force. Finally, I urge as a Taiji Men dizi, I will fight to the end, and my country must return just to my shifu and to Taiji Men, and punish the offender severely, and return the sacred land of Taiji Men. I also sincerely thank the many experts and scholars who are willing to help us fight for the writer's side. Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. As long as we are united and play our parts, the earth will be peaceful and return to the world of peace and love. Thank you all.
Thank you, Morrison. I'm frankly speaking confident that the political decisions needed will be made and this deprivation of justice will end. Fourthly, I would like to invite to share a witness Miss Jenny Lin. She is a technology manager and Taiji Men dizi. Miss Lin, please.
Good day, everyone. My name is Jenny and I am a Taiji Men dizi. Before I joined Taiji Men, I was a person with no self-confidence and I always put a lot of pressure on myself, which resulted in endless physical and mental pains. So I had to carry medication with me at all times in my 20th. Fortunately, in 1994, I was recommended by my roommate and had the opportunity to practice Qigong under the guidance of Dr. Hong Tao-Tse. Taiji Men is an ancient menpai, similar to school, of Qigong, martial arts and self-cultivation. Shifu has taught me that I should encourage myself, learn from good examples, get rid of bad temper, and cultivate my mind. To cultivate means to change, and to practice means to take action, and put them into practice in daily life. The wisdom Shifu taught and the fellowship of Taiji Men brothers and sisters helped me to regain my physical and mental health, and apply the wisdom of life philosophy to solve my problems at work, at home and in my relationships. Shifu says frequently that it is not enough to be good alone, that all our friends and family should also be good and so should the society, the nation and the world. So, after improving myself, I want to help others to be as good as I am and so do my fellow brothers and sisters. That's why most of the brothers and sisters practice Qigong, cultivate themselves and help others with their family at Taiji Men. However, on December 19, 1996, Taiji Men was subjected to a political crackdown for no reason when prosecutor Ho Kwanjin fabricated false witnesses and evidence to viciously and falsely accuse Taiji Men of fraud and tax evasion. After 10 years and 7 months, the Supreme Court in the third instance ruled in 2007 that Taiji Men was not guilty of any charges including tax evasion and all the innocent defendants were compensated by the state for their wrongful imprisonment. I remember in 1997 when the media questioned Shifu whether to continue teaching dizi, he replied that he would teach his dizi as long as they wanted to learn. During the 10 years of criminal litigation, Shifu had to face lawsuits and litigation, but he never missed any opportunity to teach his dizi Kung Fu. My Shifu's desire to save the world has never changed because of any obstacles. Shifu and his dizi have visited over 100 countries to promote the culture of love and peace, launched the movement of an era of conscience, held public lectures, etc., guiding people to start from changing their hearts. Throughout these years, all my family have followed Shifu to participate in those love and peace trips, which have broadened my horizons and activated my heart to love the world and to care about people around me. The aims of Taiji Men Qigong Academy is to promote the culture of Taiji Men and to advance the physical, mental and spiritual health of world citizens. Culture is vital to the national ethics, national spirit and moral character of a country. Shifu, Dr. Hong Tao-Tse often said, a good culture leads to a good education, and a good education leads to a good economy. He also said, cultural diversity is the common heritage of mankind and an important driving force in the progress of civilization. The integration of different cultures and respect for differences and uniqueness are key elements in promoting world peace and harmony. Many people exclaimed, "Wow! Amazing!" when they first met Taiji Men and saw Taiji Men cultural performances. All the cultural goodwill visits are paid for by Shifu and his dizi out of their own pockets, with no government subsidies, no external funding sought, and no political intentions but to promote love and peace all over the world. However, While we were promoting a culture of love and peace and conscience, we had to at the same time face the persecution of human rights due to the political purge. We had thought that in 2007, the state would clear the name of Taiji Men so that Shifu and Dizi would be able to devote themselves to the world. However, what distressed us most is that the NTB bureaucrats ignored the Supreme Court's decision and continued to issue unlawful tax bills and heavy penalties and even forcefully took Taiji Men's sacred land intended for a self-cultivation center into state ownership. Taiji Men has been invited 10 times and participated in the National Day ceremony 8 times, bringing the beauty of a national culture that has been passed down for generations to the people of Taiwan. Taiji Men, Shifu and Dizi love this country and do not want Taiwan to become a corrupt kingdom, so we made up our mind to respond to the Tax and Legal Reform League and tax victims, and embark a journey of tax and legal reform to stop the violators from using taxation to further harm the people. For more than 10 years, Taiji Men and Dizi have spent their spare time holding signs in various places in Taiwan no matter it was rainy or burning hot. We'd like to spread awareness of taxation to citizens so that they can understand what taxpayers' rights are and know how to protect themselves and fight for their rights. We hope that officials will awaken their conscience and stop bullying the people with the illegal tax system. Today is the International Day of Charity in memory of Mother Teresa. Her motto, "Don't think about doing great things, just do small, ordinary things with great love," really speaks to me. Whether it is Shifu and Dizi spreading the seeds of love and peace through cultural exchanges, or organizing various tax and legal forums and street propaganda to promote legal tax reform in Taiwan in a peaceful way to stop evil, this is using love to awaken the conscience of officials to admit their mistakes and correct them. This July 13th marks the 15th anniversary of the vindication of the Taiji Men injustice case. This is the anniversary of the judicial trial that cleared Taiji Men's name. However, the tax authorities continue to persecute Taiji Men, Shifu and Dizi to this day. Even so, we will never stop fighting until justice really prevails. It is not easy for Taiji Men, Shifu and Dizi to uphold justice for more than 25 years. But for a cultivator, a life of doing the right thing and persisting in the same way is a life full of meanings. For Taiji Men, Dizi, it is an honor and pride.
Thank you. Lastly, Mr. Eric Shen, IT Manager, and Taiji Men Dizi. Eric, the floor is yours.
Hi, I am Eric. I am Taiji Men Dizi. My father was once an alcoholic, and he used to drink a lot every day, causing a lot of unrest in the family. Since he became Taiji Men Dizi, he gradually gave up his addiction to alcohol and his temper became better. Although he passed away many years ago, his story continues to inspire many people and families who have suffered the same scenario. Dr. Hong Taozu Zheng Menrun of Taiji Men told his Dizi true charity is to save hearts. The Dizi voluntaries shared their life stories of health, wealth, wisdom, happiness and joy that they have learned at Taiji Men via self-published or self-financed videos, books, and TV programs. They hope that through their own experience, they can bring joyful and positive energy to the world and influence people around them, bringing a cycle of goodness to the world. I once heard an impressive story of a Taiji Men brother's personal experience. A mobhead had a chest injury in a gangster fighting, sent to his clinic for emergent surgery. The surgery was successful, however, the first thing the mobhead woke up is to find the gangster and want to take revenge for himself. This story illustrates that although doctors can save people's lives, but they cannot save people's hearts. The teach of Taiji Men Shifu is really saving people's hearts. Dr. Hong Taozu Zheng Menrun of Taiji Men has led his Dizi to travel around the world to promote the culture of love, peace, human rights, and conscience in the world. Over the past half-century, the Shifu and Dizi have self-funded trips to over 300 cities in 101 nations to conduct more than 3,000 cultural performances and exchanges and invited presidents and influential leaders to ring the bell of world peace and love and work together to promote love and peace. In June, my 14-year-old daughter, my wife and I attended the Stockholm Plus 50 Environmental Summit in Stockholm, Sweden, and the 25th Eurasian Economic Summit in Turkey with Sifu. We follow the step of shifu to promote love, peace and conscience in the world, and witness that through the ceremony of ringing the bell of world peace and love can truly unite influential leaders to promote world peace based on love and conscience. When we were in Sweden, there was a minister of environment from Ghana who was moved to tears after he rang the bell. I saw shifu actively talking and communicating with these leaders, hoping that together world leaders would use their influence and wisdom to solve the problems of war, poverty, environmental degradation, climate change and spiritual loss in the world today. Former First Secretary of Ambassador of Gambia to the Kingdom of Morocco Mr. Mamadou Haidara think Dr. Hong is a great man. He said he is dedicating his whole life just to spread the message of peace, using the resources, his energy, his time, to go into this noble activity. Tai Ji Men Shifu and Dizi have been upholding the spirit of great compassion of martial arts practitioners, selflessly dedicating themselves to the world. Tai Ji Men has done civil diplomacy for a long time and is well known in the world. We are the group that loves Taiwan. Although Taiwan is generally recognized as a free and democratic country in the world, Taiwan's freedom and human rights have been overshadowed by the persecution of Tai Ji Men by a few corrupt government officials for nearly 26 years. The group that loves Taiwan the most is also the group that has been hurt the most by a few government officials. How could it be? In 1996, the Shifu, Shirmu and some dizi of Tai Ji Men were illegally detained, and tens of thousands of families were deprived of their personal freedom, reputation, property rights, and freedom of worship for 26 years, although in 2007, the third trial court has ruled that Tai Ji Men is not guilty and without violating any tax evasion. The defendant also received full state compensation for wrongful imprisonment. The Control Yuan has investigated and corrected the Tai Ji Men case many times by the prosecutor and National Taxation Bureau. In 2002, the investigation found that the prosecutor who initiated the case was guilty of 8 major violations of the law, and requested the Ministry of Justice to take serious action against him. However, the Ministry of Justice defended the case and delayed the execution of the law, so that the prosecutor who had violated the law to investigate the Tai Ji Men case, Ho Quan-jen, has not been punished and was even promoted to the position of Deputy Director General of Agency Against Corruption and Director General of Institute of Forensic Medicine. The tax bills for the years 1991 to 1996, which were derived from the criminal case, were corrected to zero for the years 1991 and 1993 to 1996, except for the same situation year 1992, which was not revoked, and even resulted in the sacred land of the Tai Ji Men being illegally auctioned off by the National Tax Bureau and the Administrative Enforcement Agency of the Ministry of Justice on August 21, 2020, and forcibly nationalized. General Comment Number 22.2 of the United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, states in the Article 18 of the Covenant explicitly provides that the terms religion and belief are defined very broadly and are not limited to narrowly defined religions, and that any faith or practice group is protected. Tai Ji Men is an ancient Qigong and martial arts menpai that aims to promote culture and the physical, mental and spiritual health of the world people, and is undoubtedly protected by the Article 18 of the Convention. Regrettably, a few government officials in Taiwan have ignored the international human rights provisions on freedom of religious belief and legalized them domestically, resulting in the Tai Ji Men case that has not yet been vindicated. In the midst of the Taiwan Strait crisis, Taiwan needs to do better in terms of freedom, democracy, and human rights. The government cannot pretend not to hear or see the Tai Ji Men case, and we once again call on President Tsai Ing-wen's administration to abide by the Constitution and implement the international covenants to protect human rights, revoke the illegal tax bill of Tai Ji Men in accordance with the law, return the sacred land of Tai Ji Men, and vindicate the unjust case of Tai Ji Men, so that Taiwan can truly become a beacon of freedom and democracy in Asia. Thank you.
Thank you to all the 5 Tai Ji Men dizi witnesses. For the conclusion, I have the honor to pass the word to Mr. Marco Respinti, who is director in charge of Bitter Winter magazine. Mr. Respinti, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As usual, our webinar today was full of quite inspirational thoughts, stories told by scholars ranging from Populonia, one of my favorite plays being your servant, an amateur lover of archaeology, to Mother Teresa, whom I'm really glad to hear is very popular and loved among different cultures and people. And all these stories enrich our webinar significantly and nicely. These personal testimonies were particularly moving, as usual, and I do thank them wholeheartedly for speaking out the truth always, no matter what, and for their transparent patriotism, which is very, very important in the delicate Tai Ji Men case. And of course, I do thank our two moderators, Ivan and Peter, who have graciously and professionally led the two sessions of our meeting today. And through them, I thank Human Rights Without Frontiers and the Center for Studies on New Religions for hosting this precious series of webinars. Well, our topic today, political charity and the Tai Ji Men case, it's so intriguing that I couldn't refrain from crafting a few more reflections, and you will pardon me. I really would like to now to attach these further reflections of mine at the end of our webinar as a kind of conclusion, at least a partial conclusion for today. Today is the Organization of the United Nations asked us to observe the International Day of Charity. It is an important day. No matter its virtues and or failures, no matter what political opinion one may have of it, and I have mine, the United Nations project is the best that the modern world has been able to put together to try to achieve peace and cooperation among the nations of the earth after the terrible disaster of the two world wars in the first half of the 20th century. Such an attempt is seminal. Human beings are supposed to live a good life. To live a good life, they need peace. Only free people live in peace, and wars and division and hatred come around when evil reigns and freedom disappear. All attempts to bring people and nation to unity are crucial. The ancient, medieval, and pre-modern world tried some of such attempts. Sometimes they enjoyed success, and sometimes they suffered failures. Of all, let me just mention Tregua Day, or the God's Truce, also called God's Peace. It was not a period of time, but a social movement during the Middle Ages aimed at containing violence during the crisis that took place in the middle of the 9th century in Western Europe. In a deeply religious time, that time, councils of the Roman Catholic Church set limits of time and places that could be dedicated to warfare and threaten with spiritual sanctions those who trespassed. Protecting civilians, properties, and peaceful institutions, God's truce has had a profound and lasting impact on the whole society, accounting for true progress in civilization during what many people still wrongly define the Dark Ages. It seems apt to quote this example to an audience like ours, which is sensitive to spiritual topics. The United Nations attempt to avoid contrasts among nations is at least ascribable to the same intention used by other institutions in different periods of time and different places, no matter how the world has changed and the secular nature of the UN notwithstanding. During the first of the catastrophes of the 20th century, World War I, an event echoing Tregua Day took place in the battlefields of Ypres in the West Flanders, Belgium, in December 1914. Europeans had been butchering one another for 5 months. The bombastic slogan of the time called it the war to end all wars, drawing inspiration from the English novelist H.G. Wells' 1914 book, The War That Will End the World. More aptly, Pope Benedict XV called it the useless slaughter. On the Western Front, the carnage reached one of its many climaxes. Soldiers were rotting in the trenches and losing hope. Then, with no agreement of sort, guided by who knows who, servicemen from both sides, French, German, and British, started crossing the firing lines around Christmas Day, 1914. Shy at first, bolder then, they shackled hands and exchanged cigarettes, even wishes. They befriended each other, sang together, toasted, played a soccer match. History knows the episode as the Christmas truce, and it left the world astonished. Books have been written on it and letters from the front collected. A beautiful French movie came out of it in 2005. In fall 2021, even a Swedish heavy metal band, Sabaton, whose songs are all dedicated to history and war, honoring valor and heroism while despising bloodsheds, published a mild piano song, Christmas Truce, on a variation of Carol of the Bells, a popular air by Ukrainian composer Mykola Leontovich and his American colleague Peter Gramatikov, based on a Ukrainian folk chant. Why do I indulge in such details? To offer my testimony to how noble the spirit of human beings can be even in the most horrid condition or bizarre ways when inspired by a superior dimension. Think, for example, of the crowds at the Sabaton concert being educated to such benevolent sentiments during a dark rock concert. This brings me back again to the United Nations intentions for a day like today and its relations to Tai Ji Men. Tai Ji Men is suffering slander and injustice. It has been the victim of a malevolent condition for more than a quarter of a century, its youth being stolen, their joys and hopes, its property seized, its reputation trodden upon. The corrupt and ideological forces that have been persecuting Tai Ji Men with no reason and against the rulings of courts of law, and for such a long time, demonstrates just the contrary of what charity is. They exhibit meanness, covetousness, and greed. Wishing to properly reflect on this topic on a UN Day of Observance devoted to charity, we have devoted our today's webinar to the concept of political charity. How peculiar this is, and central to any discussion regarding citizens and nations living together in harmony and peace. Today, international scholars and dizi disciples of Tai Ji Men address the topic, offering us important insights and valuable information. They treated the topic from different angles, intellectual or personal, showing that a society with no political charity is like Cain, continuously assassinating Abel, a social hell. It is as if the two world wars, which I evoked earlier, would become a permanent condition for humanity. The papers presented today by the scholars and the always touching testimonies of dizi struck my final consideration on a concept that twins political charity. I will formulate it by using the words of the 19th century French journalist and historian Jacques Joly. He famously said, "La vérité est la seule charité permise à l'histoire." Truth is the only charity allowed to history. It is a deep thought. Joly wrote thousands of pages, and I haven't been able to locate yet where that quote exactly is. It is traditionally reported. Maybe he uttered it, and some of his contemporaries picked it up. It is a noteworthy phrase, because among Joly's voluminous writings, many are dedicated to the first genocide in history. It was that when French Jacobin state perpetrated in 1793 and 94 against its own citizens in La Vendée Militaire, a region in the northwest of the country where Catholics rebelled to the idiocracy of the French Revolution and to exorbitant taxes, and were slaughtered. The subject is relevant here because it is about the hatred for religion, state persecution, the unbearable burden of exaggerated taxes, and the obligation for peaceful people to enroll in an unjust war of aggression, at that time declared by France against the Habsburg Empire on April 20th, 1792. We find the same elements, at least, in the Tai Ji Men case, a spiritual movement operating for a peaceful world to avoid wars and hatred, which is persecuted by a state using physical weapons. In his books on Vendée, Crétin usually quotes relevant details that are not found elsewhere. Some doubted the truthfulness of his notes. They were wrong. Crétin usually was mainly a reporter. He collected facts, opinions, even rumors. It is like saying that one cannot trust the scoop of a reporter because no one else had it. Of course, his role is based on credibility and dignity. Crétin usually showed to be credible and dignified in many other ways, thus he must be considered credible also in his scoops. Equal credible is the meaning of his aphorism. It is in fact political charity. If in fact political charity, as we heard today, is the second form of love of humanity, the first being love directed to God, this is because its fabric is truth. The fabric of all that is human is and should always be truth. The only political charity allowed to Tai Ji Men, as to all human beings, people and nations, must unavoidably be always truth. Therefore, until and unless truth is fully and publicly restored on the Tai Ji Men case, political charity won't be fulfilled, and no permanent Tregua Day and no continuous Christmas truce to bless Tai Ji Men shifu, Grandmaster, and dizi, and the whole world. Because if and when one human being suffers, we all suffer. Thank you so much for being patient for my further remarks that I used as a conclusion. Our today's webinar came to an end, and I'm saying again, thank you to all for attending. Thank you to all of you for speaking out today, and we will see next time to our new webinar, and I will leave you again with a beautiful video at the real end of today's webinar. Thank you.
Ancient Chinese emperors rescript for penitence. The ancients believed that a natural disaster is a condemnation for the emperor's misconduct and corruption. Therefore, when a natural disaster occurs, the emperor must reflect on himself and issue a rescript for penitence, not only to correct the mistakes, but also to repent and practice in order to obtain heaven's forgiveness and pacify the disaster. Emperor Wu of Han, who pioneered the prosperous Han dynasty, was superstitious about witchcraft and had his prince murdered in his later years. After years of war, which caused a lot of human and financial resources, God sent floods, droughts, and locusts, one after another. People began to eat people, and there were starving people rebelling everywhere. After a series of strikes, Emperor Wu expressed his regrets and issued a rescript for penitence, in which he admitted his mistakes, reflected on his conquest strategy, prohibited raising taxes on the people without permission, emphasized agriculture, and allowed the people to rest and recuperate. After that, Emperor Wu ended using the army and stopped all activities that harmed people and depleted the world's resources. Finally, the Han dynasty was able to restart a new opportunity without suffering a humiliating defeat as the Qing dynasty had. In the late Ming Dynasty, there were severe droughts in place on the mainland. The Manchuria was looking outward, and civil unrest was widespread. Faced with internal and external issues, Chongzhen was forced to issue a rescript for penitence to the people to admit that the situation was critical. However, he did not show any concrete repentance. The country's situation became worse and worse. Later, Chongzhen issued 5 more rescripts for penitence. Aside from condemning himself, he also cursed the entire government and angrily criticized his men's incompetence. He said one thing but did another, despite his genuine repentance. To be honest, the rescript for penitence was nothing more than a blank check for Chongzhen to win people's sympathy, but people would eventually see his true face. As predicted, Li Zhicheng, the leader of peasant rebellions, eventually overthrew the Ming Dynasty. There must be reasons for a country's rise and fall. A ruler who knows how to change himself and put his reforms into practice will be able to keep the country in peace for a long time.